If one night, at exactly 3 a.m., you hear the sound of a man crying from an abandoned house, don't go near it, because that voice may not be calling for help. It may be calling you. And in the village of Devgarh, there was exactly such a house. The villagers called it Kali Koti. Every night, at exactly 3 a.m., a man's crying could be heard coming from the old house standing at the edge of the village. The voice was so clear, but the most frightening thing about this story was not that a crying voice came from the house. The frightening thing was that no one had lived in that house for the past 18 years. The village was called Devgarh. It was a small village surrounded by fields, an old temple, a dense forest, and a deserted mansion some distance away from the village. The villagers simply called the mansion Kali Koti. It was said that about 18 years ago, a man named Raghavir Singh lived there. Raghavir was known in the village for his honesty and calm nature. But one night, suddenly, loud screams and cries began coming from his house. The next morning, when the villagers reached the house, the main door was locked from the inside.
Why is it sealed? No one knows. This is not a good sign. What do we do?
The door was broken down.
Something is not right here.
Everything inside was exactly as it had been, but Raghavir was gone. None of his belongings were missing. There was only an old clock hanging on the wall, whose hands had stopped at exactly 3:07. The police arrived. An investigation was carried out, but Raghavir was never found. A few months later, the villagers abandoned the house. Time passed, and then, one night, at exactly 3 a.m., the sound of a man crying was heard coming from the abandoned mansion. At first, people thought it might be an animal, but the same thing happened the next night, then the third night, then the fourth. Every time, exactly at 3 a.m. There was something strange about the voice. Only one sentence could be heard. Open the door. The villagers stopped going anywhere near the house. But there was one young man in the village, Arjun. He was about 27 years old. He didn't believe in any of these things. Arjun worked in the city and had come back to the village for a few days. When he heard the story of Kali Koti, he laughed. He said, "If there is a ghost, let it come out and show itself. I'm not going to be scared just because I hear a voice." An old man named Harinath tried to stop him. "Son, don't go near that house at night." Arjun asked, "Why?" Harinath remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "Because the voice coming from that house doesn't come from outside." Arjun didn't understand. He asked, "Then where does it come from?" Harinath said only one thing. "Not from inside the house, from underneath it." That night, Arjun decided that he would find out the truth. At 2:30 a.m., he took a flashlight and left his house. The entire village was silent. Somewhere in the distance, dogs were barking. As he got closer to Kali Koti, the air suddenly became colder. 2:55. Arjun stood in front of the mansion. The windows were broken. Moss covered the walls. A thick, rusted chain hung across the main door. Arjun pointed his flashlight inside. There was nothing. Then, the clock struck 3 a.m. And at that exact moment, a crying voice came from inside. Arjun was frightened for the first time. The voice sounded completely human, and it was coming from very close. Open the door. Arjun removed the chain. The door slowly opened by itself. Inside was complete darkness. His scent floor was covered with a thick layer of dust. But on that dust, there were fresh footprints. Arjun pointed his flashlight at the floor. The footprints were going deeper into the hidals, but there were no footprints coming back. Slowly, he began following them. The footprints led him to a small room at the back of the house. Thick wooden boards had been nailed across the outside of the door. Arjun removed the boards. As the door opened, a cold, rotten smell hit his face. Inside the room were several old wooden boxes. The same clock was hanging on the wall. The clock had stopped. The time was 3:07. Arjun took out his phone. When the time on the screen, his hands began to tremble. His phone also showed 3:07. But outside, the clock was still showing 3:01. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. Arjun quickly turned around and pointed his flashlight toward the sound.
There was no one there. Then, the crying started again, but this time, the sound wasn't coming from inside the room. It was coming from underneath the floor. Arjun looked at the wooden floor. One section looked different from the rest. He removed the wooden plank. Beneath it, he saw a small iron latch. As soon as he opened it, he found a staircase leading downward. Arjun stood there for a few moments. Then he pointed his flashlight down. The stairs were extremely old, and deep scratches, like marks made by fingernails, covered the walls. When he reached the bottom, he found a small underground room. In the center of the room was an old wooden chair. In front of the chair were dozens of scratches on the wall, and among those scratches, a date had been carved. August 17th, 2008. Arjun read the date. This was the exact night Raghuveer had disappeared. Then he noticed an old tape recorder in one corner of the room.
Is there anybody else down here with us?
He picked it up. There was still a cassette inside. For some reason, Arjun pressed the play button. At first, there was only static. Then the trembling voice of a man came through. It was Raghuveer's voice. If anyone is listening to this recording, Listen to me carefully. Arjun's breathing became faster. Raghavir continued. Every night at 3 a.m., I hear the sound of someone crying from underneath the house. At first, I thought it was an animal. Then I opened the floor. But what I found underneath was not a human voice. There was silence for a few seconds. Then Raghavir's voice became very quiet. It was my own voice. Arjun's face turned pale. The recording continued. I tried to stop it, but every night the voice came a little closer. Last night, it called my name for the first time. Then a loud sound came from the recording. It sounded as if someone was pounding on a door, and Raghavir screamed, "If that voice ever tells you to open the door, never open it." The recording suddenly stopped. Arjun placed the recorder on the floor. At that exact moment, a voice came from the other end of the underground room.
Arjun?
Arjun! His entire body froze. He slowly turned around. Someone was standing in the darkness. His face could not be seen. Then the voice came again. And this time, it was much closer. Arjun, open the door. Arjun began stepping backward. Then he remembered Raghuvir's warning. He ran toward the stairs, but the way out was blocked. The iron door at the top of the stairs had closed by itself. Arjun pulled the door with all his strength. It didn't move. Behind him, the crying became louder. Then suddenly, a shadow appeared on the wall, but there was no one standing there. The shadow slowly began moving toward Arjun. Arjun closed his eyes, and then he felt something inside his pocket. It was an old key. He remembered that there was a small iron door in the room upstairs. Maybe this was the key to it. He pushed the door with all his strength. The door opened. Arjun ran up the stairs and straight toward the main entrance. But before he could leave, he looked back. The clock on the wall of the upstairs room was moving again. Its hands were slowly advancing. 3:06, 3:07. And just as the clock reached 3:08, the crying stopped. Arjun ran out of the house. The next morning he told the villagers everything. But when they went with him to Kali Kothi, there was no way to reach the underground room. The floor was completely normal. The tape recorder was gone. And there was no date on the wall. Harinath listened to Arjun and asked only one question. "You heard his voice?" Arjun nodded. Harinath said, "Then I understand now. Raghavir didn't disappear that night. He got trapped down there." Arjun asked, "But then, whose voice was it?" Harinath looked directly into his eyes and said, "Not Raghuvir's. The voice of the man who was going to enter that house next." For several days after that night, no sound came from Kali Kothi. The villagers thought perhaps it was finally over. But exactly 7 days later, at 3 a.m., the same crying voice returned. This time, the voice was clearer than ever. And between the crying, a new sentence could be heard. "Arjun, open the door." Arjun left the village that very night. He never tried to return. But the story doesn't end there. Years later, workers arrived to demolish Kali Kothi. When they broke through the back wall, they discovered a narrow hidden room. Inside was an old wooden chair, and on the wall in front of it were hundreds of names scratched into the surface. At the very bottom, it said, Raghavir, 2008, and directly below it, Arjun. But the most frightening thing was, there was another empty space beneath it, as if someone was waiting for a third name. Today, Kali Kothi is no longer there. An empty field stands in its place. But the elders of Devgarh still say, if one night at exactly 3 a.m., you hear a man's crying coming from an abandoned house, don't go near it. And if that voice calls your name and says, "Open the door," don't answer it under any circumstances, because perhaps that voice isn't coming from a ghost. Perhaps it is your own voice calling you from the future. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video for more mysterious and terrifying stories like this. Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the bell icon and share this story with that friend who loves listening to scary stories alone at night. I'll see you again with another mysterious story.